when I think of my journey, my journey in this has very much been a journey back to myself. There were different parts of me that I began to rediscover. The more that I was healing and clearing different layers and patterns and traumas and all that kind of stuff, I began to rediscover parts of myself that I recognized from childhood. And some of them were skills, they were maybe psychic abilities or intuitive abilities, things like that, that in teenage years especially, I'd shut them off because they just didn't fit, or they were inconvenient, or they weren't welcomed in my world. I didn't have space for them. And so this journey of taking away all the different layers and building my energy, it really, really feels like I'm coming closer and closer to what's my most natural self. Yeah. And there's, we kind of take a chance with that in a way. Of when we step into a healing journey, most of the time we don't quite know what's ahead. Most of you might remember that from when you were at introduction level. And it was coming to the class, and we were doing the mantra, and you would feel light and lovely, and you were around lovely people, and that felt really positive. And then we start getting into the work. We started getting to touch into the layers of us that needed healing or needed clearing. And then it would start to get a little bit uncomfortable. So when we get to that point, we're not able to see the end result. We're not able to have a sense of what that's going to look like or feel like in ourselves. So it really requires a kind of a leap of faith to go with that. A lot of the time, for me, that didn't feel like I had a choice. I mean, of course I had a choice. But in my thinking, I'd come this far, I wasn't going to back out now, just because it started to get a little bit wobbly or a little bit tough. So there was a choice in that I was making of, right, go through it. You've already opened this up. What are you going to do? Just leave it wide open, like wide open wound after surgery? You have to do the next bit of, stitch it up or whatever. So as we bring this into the next level of it, our learning in this is we start to learn what fits our natural self and what doesn't. And there's so many things that are kind of culturally accepted or culturally okay. Whether it's over-drinking or social drug use or promiscuity or whatever it is, yeah? These are very culturally normalized. And I remember feeling at times, in the past, before I did any meditation, how that just didn't fit for me. But yet I pushed myself to make it fit. So yes, I expanded my alcohol tolerance and blah, 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 yeah? And my morals changed, yeah? And I found out that it even more did not fit with me. I knew it from the beginning, but I had to explore it. Maybe I didn't have to explore it. But I didn't have enough of that strength in me that was able to say, no, that's not for me. That's not right for me. So there's something of, when we begin to realize that our healthiness means being able to recognize where we don't try and make ourselves fit into something unhealthy. Yeah? And that's across the board. That's in our thinking, how we manage our emotions, how we self-regulate that, or how we manage or take care of things like whether it's alcohol use or drugs or sex or any of that kind of stuff. It's like we begin to feel free enough and sure enough in ourselves that we're choosing right by us. So ultimately, that's really the journey. And when we get into the area of practicing disciplines of mantra or practicing other deeper disciplines, that's really what starts to open up. We start to see the layers of just what's not us, where we've adapted or where we've adjusted or maybe compromised in certain things, and sometimes for really good reasons. We might have compromised to make a relationship work because we felt that was the right thing to do at the time, and then realize afterwards, that actually wasn't right for me. There's an experience in that's learning, yeah? So how brave do we feel in letting ourselves expose the layers of stuff that's actually not us. And get closer to that diamond or that pearl of us that's there. Because it is there. It's definitely there. I'm not going to waste my time looking for something that I don't think is there. Do you think it's there? Are you hoping it's there?
Yeah.
You're hoping it's there.
No, it's there.
It's definitely there. Anybody feeling a little bit, and please be honest, yeah, of feeling like, I don't know if I have that in me. It's a lovely idea, and I really hope it's there, but actually I don't know if that's in me. Not sure, but yeah, I'd like to keep looking. Yeah? Okay. So getting closer to the essence. How are we all feeling as I'm speaking this? Anybody feeling a bit like, oh, I don't know.
I feel like that.
What do you feel like?
I feel like no willpower.
No willpower.
I thought all day about that.
Did you?
You don't have to look at me, guys.
What?
No, please be honest. I feel like I don't have any willpower. But she's saying she doesn't have that.
No, I have it, but I don't know.
What don't you know?
For some reason, I do not use it.
For some reason, you don't use your will. That must be really annoying.
Yes.
Because what happens if we don't actively use our will? What's the default?
Frustration.
Say again?
Stagnant.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
The default is kind of like that we sink a little bit. How would we you're bringing something really, really valuable in this, okay? Of how we can acknowledge that maybe somewhere along the way our will gets broken. Yeah. So it may be through a relationship, it may be through parents or a teacher or something like that, where we were small in that, and they were very big, and they broke our will. Yeah. Has anybody else had that experience? Yeah. Of getting overpowered by somebody, and that breaks our will. How are we supposed to get our will back after that? How are we supposed to have any kind of trust that my will can be enough? How are we supposed to redevelop that? It's how we find how to do things on our own terms. So we begin to build our will again, and we begin to trust in the strength of it. Because until we find that path of doing things on our own terms, what we can find that we really do is we just resist the will of anything that's suggested to us. We'll just dig our heels in and fight that. Because our only experience is, if I let you break my will, I feel devastated and I'm crushed. And that's a humiliating experience. Is this feeling accurate? Of how we find how to do things on our terms. Yeah. So not that we become tyrannical about it or excessive in it, but we're able to hold our own. Yeah. It's respectfully holding our own in relationships with other people. Yeah. Because the opposite is we'll just say no. Whatever they say, oh, do you want to go to the cinema? No. Oh, do you want to go for a meal? No. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Yeah. It's this sort of passive-aggressive kind of pattern that we start to play out because we get afraid of using our own will. Yeah. So the journey closer to our natural self, it means at some point accepting that we are powerful. It's accepting that we're in charge in this in some way. But that also exposes where we don't feel in charge, where we don't feel powerful. It exposes the hurts or the different areas where we were traumatized or shocked or overpowered. That's how we start to identify our areas of growth. So on this path, discomfort and uncomfortableness is probably our most valuable feeling. It's our greatest lead into pulling a thread and finding where that goes. Something just doesn't feel right anymore. Why doesn't it feel right anymore? You'll feel this more and more the closer that you get to yourself. Because things that used to feel okay with you, or people that used to feel okay with you, situations that felt okay with you, will no longer feel okay, and you'll be wondering, Jesus, when did that happen? How did that happen? So it's really important that we bear with that. Because while that's happening, it can be a bit messy. Boxes all over the place, yeah? Yeah. And we can get a little bit unsure and maybe a little bit frightened. And we might even start going into an imagination of going back into where it all felt comfortable and it all felt okay.
You don't want to face
Yeah, it's like, oh, I liked my friendships the way they were, and I liked how my family was the way it was. You know, but it's a nostalgia. It doesn't exist anymore. And it may not have even existed before then, but our way of looking at things, when it starts to get messy or starts to get a bit stormy, we can't trust how we're looking or feeling something. When we're looking at memories, it alters. So when we go through and come out the other side, and then we look back, that's a little bit more reliable. In the midst of things, that's very hard to find a reliability. Yeah. So how is that relevant to here? Yeah. We were talking a little bit about this outside, and actually we were talking about it as well, Katrina, about how on a spiritual path, how your relationship with your teacher creates the space for you to grow in. How you and I create this relationship is how we create that space. And your testing of that, you're getting to know of me, you're getting to know of the energy, whether it's books you read, or it's coming to class, or practicing your mantra, it will all start to become more familiar and more recognizable. That builds a space where you can start to be more and more real. It will feel more and more okay to be more and more real you. Yeah. And the stuff that, you know, in the early stages might feel a bit like, oh Jesus, you know, what's this that's coming up? Yeah, where we don't want anybody to see that. We start to become more and more okay with that. It's not such a big deal if we admit we made a mistake, or we did something the wrong way, or fucked something up, whatever it is. That starts to become not such a big deal when we start to feel that space in the relationship and that kind of safety in it. Yeah? So I really invite you to do that in whatever way feels right for you this year. Some of you have taken huge strides in building that relationship and building that connection with me. Yeah? And I see there's a dramatic difference in your growth and your development in that. I can see how much you relax in it. You're relaxing into yourself. These are really closely linked, yeah? It's kind of how much you dare yourself to get close to me and get close to yourself. They're the same thing. So I'm really putting that out to you to take those steps. Take the chance of getting closer in that and see what you find out. If you don't like it, it's cool. We're not going to fall out over that. And I may rub you up the wrong way, but that's okay as well. I can handle it. Can you handle it? This is how we can strengthen that will of, I will do that. I will phone you, or I will meet you, or I will ask my questions. You get to develop a greater trust in yourself, as well as figuring out whether you can really trust me or not, or really trust this path.